What's going on, guys? Power number 9 here, and we are going live with commentary on a top 8 game here of Star Wars Unlimited TCG. We got ZuhairGalaxy versus thorrk in the Command Boba mirror. And so let's go ahead and see how this is gonna go. The Command Boba probably one of the stronger decks right now. And both players using this. Not sure if there's going to be any super major differences between the decks, but there could very well be. I know thorrk has been playing Vader a lot, but recently switched to Boba um, after having some rough experiences with Vader against aggro builds. So, we'll have to see how this one goes for him on a less familiar deck. I think that ZuhairGalaxy over here on the left side of the screen probably has a bit more experience with Boba and potentially with this matchup as well. But we'll have to see whether or not that avails him the win. We will be playing 2 out of 3s here with sideboards. And yeah, we're going to see how this starts. So the players have drawn their initial hands, set up their initial resources. I'm gonna just tell them they are good to go, and then we're gonna get right to the games. Let's rock. So it looks like thorrk has the initiative and leads off with a Viper Probe Droid, 2 cost 3/2, and when played, look at the opponent's hand and sees Cartel Spacer, Boba Disintegrator, Rook, and Vader there. So kind of a high cost hand there for ZuhairGalaxy, but he will have the Boba Disintegrator that could be played on this next turn, conceivably even using the ECL ambush. Now, one of the problems with this Viper Probe Droid is 3/2 is a good stat line overall in the game right now, but in this situation, if he draws a Super Laser Technician, ambushing it with the ECL to kill the Viper Probe Droid is an extremely strong play, not only advancing your own resources, but also clearing a unit. Maybe in order to counter that, thorrk makes an attack with his Viper as the first action, preventing a potential ambush from eliminating that damage. Then he plays his own Super Laser Technician, so 3 cost 2/1. When defeated, you may put this unit into play as a resource and ready it. This is a very strong card. I think it's one that is generally one of the more relevant cards in the meta at present. And Zuhair interestingly plays a cell block guard. I'm actually very surprised that he played this instead of the Boba Disintegrator that he had in hand, because the cell block guard the Viper Probe Droid can just trade with this. Maybe he's hoping that his opponent will attack with the Super Laser Tech and then he can fight the Viper Probe Droid to get a 2-for-1. But yeah, I'm not sure. The cell block guard isn't an amazing choice, I think, because the Viper Probe Droid can remove it in one shot, but we're going to have to see what thorrk goes for. It is also possible that thorrk will use the Super Laser Technician first in order to guarantee the ramp so that he can get his own Boba Fett onto the field, but we'll have to see what happens here. Personally, I think if I'm thorrk, I probably just take the kill with the Viper Probe Droid, trading for the cell block guard, and therefore opening up the ground arena. It would depend a lot on what's in hand, though. If we see for instance, if there were the what's it called, the escort skiff ambush the cell block guard is a pretty reasonable play here, allowing the Viper Probe Droid and the Super Laser Tech to attack the base if need be, or the Super Laser Tech can then swing into another unit if another ground unit does get played out by ZuhairGalaxy. But, given that this is a tournament stream and we do not have the players' hands visible, I do not know what options are going to be available for thorrk exactly. So it's sort of an interesting call. The thing about this Super Laser Technician is that in order to get its ramp ability, you have to have it actually be defeated. And because of that, he might be incentivized to have the Super Laser Technician attack into the cell block guard, even though it's inefficient, to guarantee that he can get it killed this turn. Because yeah, and that is exactly what he does. So I don't think this is optimal, but he's playing it safe in order to try and guarantee. Yeah, he's playing it safe in order to try and guarantee that he gets his ramp, gets to 5 resources, and can deploy Boba this turn. So Boba Fett, if you control 5 or more resources, deploy this later. Ooh, and an overwhelming barrage there for the Viper Probe Droid. So give a friendly unit +2/+2, then it deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of other units. Uses that barrage to take out both the Cartel Spacer and the wounded cell block guard. Greedo and Boba Fett Disintegrator deploy. Boba hits the field. And I guess so thork swings with Boba into the base. When it completes an attack of an enemy unit left play, ready up to 2 resources. Readies up those 2 resources, but doesn't have anything to do with them. So it looks like he's currently just focused on attacking into. It looks like he's currently just focused on attacking into Zuhair's base, and so we see ZuhairGalaxy will be able to deploy his own Boba leader this turn, and honestly is actually ahead on board now, or at least will be once Boba takes the field, because we're going to have both players with Boba, but Zuhair will have Greedo and Boba Disintegrator, whereas thork only has the Viper Probe Droid. However, thork does have 6 resources. We could see a Fet's Fire Spray this turn, which could actually be crucial if if we do see if we do see thork just going for the base and he has a Fet's Fire Spray here, it could be very strong. So Greedo trades with the probe droid and misses the top deck for the extra damage when he is defeated. And now, yeah, it's tough though. So so if thork attacks the base with Boba, and his opponent has a shoot first, Boba Disintegrator can actually kill the larger Boba in one shot, because on attack, if this unit is attacking an exhausted play unit that didn't interplay this round, deal 3 damage to the defender. So that ability is able to do 6 total damage between the ability and the attack. Oh, traitorous! Traitorous. When this upgrade becomes attached to a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less, take control of that unit. When this upgrade becomes unattached from a unit, that unit's owner takes control of it. So the traitorous there used to steal Zuhair's um yeah, so it steals Zuhair's Boba Disintegrator. Zuhair deploys his own normal Boba Fett, uses a shoot first to take out his the traitorous Boba Disintegrator. Um, and then we see a Greedo hit the field from thork. Man, that traitorous was a big swing. Let's see what Zuhair has in response. Ooh, Bosk shows up. Okay. So Bosk here, 4 or 5 ambush. After you play an event, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. Takes out Greedo. If thork hits this top deck, Bosk dies too, though. Let's see. No, misses the top deck. I think if thork had got that top deck, it would almost be game over, because losing that Bosk there would be pretty devastating. But thork did not get the top deck. Bosk stays on the field, and we're about to see what thork has in store as a potential counter. And okay, he's just going for the base. Yeah, oh, if he has Fet's Fire Spray, this could be game over right here. Bringing that out and attacking the base could close things out. So Bosk here, when you play an event, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. Could be quite relevant. Bosk going for the base there. thork plays 7, probably Vader. Yep, Vader. So Darth Vader commanding the First Legion is a 7 cost 5/7 with ambush. When played, search the top 10 cards of your deck for any number of villainy units with combined cost 3 or less and play each of them for free. So he's ambushing the in to defeat his opponent's Bosk, and then is going to get at least 1 unit probably. There is a chance of missing, but it's very unlikely, I think, with this deck composition. And it looks like he has a single unit in space, probably a 7th Fleet Defender. He's messed it up. He's chosen the wrong unit. Okay. Uh, and yeah, so he does get the 7th Fleet Defender. And Vader ambushes Bosk. Technically did that a bit wrongly, but Zuhair seems to be okay with it. And I think he technically may have seen his deck order there, but I'm not actually sure. And in any case, oh, Fet's Fire Spray on the other side of the board. But with the initiative taken, it's not fast enough, and Zuhair concedes the game. Thork gets the win. So the reason for that was that at the start of the next turn, Vader was going to be able to attack into Zuhair's base and win, I believe, or some other combination of attacks. Ultimately, an interesting game. I think the Traitorous was actually the big swing play in that game. So we saw Thork a little more aggressive, managed to ramp while Zuhair did not, and deploy his Boba Fett sooner. but it was looking like he was gonna be maybe overwhelmed on the board until that traitorous took his opponent's Boba Disintegrator and really shifted the equation there. Now we are going to move into round two. There is some sideboarding going on. So the players, I'm not sure what exactly they're bringing in to counter another Boba, um, but one option would be so for Zuhair, I think that if he has upgrade control, he should probably bring that in to counter Traitorous. So Traitorous is an incredibly strong card, but its weakness is that if the opponent brings out a confiscate or something, you can find yourself in a situation where you played 5 for something that in theory is great, but if your opponent counters it with something that costs 1, or they play 3 for a disabling Fang Fighter and they not only destroy your confiscate, but they develop their own board with a powerful space unit, that can be very negative. And yeah, I mean it can be very negative, and I actually wonder if Thork will sideboard out his Traitoruses. I think there's at least an argument that you should play them game one and then sideboard them out in further games so that your opponent sideboards in the anti-upgrade tech and then gets blown out, or those cards are at least dead for them. I'm not entirely sure. That's just a little theory that I have about some sideboarding tactics that you can use in this game. Um, Looks like Zuhair is ready to go, but Thork's still making some decisions about his sideboard. One interesting thing, this is a recommendation. I want to say I did not do this. So I was originally going to play in this tournament, but I actually I forgot to set an alarm and ended up oversleeping the start of the event, which is a little embarrassing. And I was actually going to play Red Iden for the tournament. But one thing that you can do is one thing that you can actually do is you can make a list of you can make a sideboard guide beforehand and just know what you're going to do for each matchup. Magoat says, "Hi, Kingsley. Hey, Magoats, how you doing, dude?" And Kisan says, "Hey, Tower. Yeah, yeah, happy to broadcast this. Going into game two. If Thork can win this one, he's going to win the match and advance to the top four. And if Zuhair can get the win this time, then we're going to move on to game three. Zuhair gets to go first and brings out a Cartel Spacer. So once again, actually the same start as last time. Thork landing the Viper Probe Droid and looking at Zuhair's hand. This Resupply is likely to be played next turn. Resupply Bosk Invader. Kind of a late gamey sort of hand for Zuhair there, but that Resupply will help him get to the late game quickly. If he's drawn an Emperor's Royal Guard, he might, or I'm sorry, if he's drawn a Super Laser Technician, he would plausibly want to use that instead of the Viper Probe Droid. But I think the resupply will be good enough, and because Thork is not playing, because Thork has a resupply of his own. Both players resupplying. We're going to see both Boba Fett's deploy next turn in all likelihood, but Zuhair has the initiative, which means that he will be the first one on the field, and his opponent's Boba could potentially be taken out by a surprise strike, um, if he first action deploys here. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, one thing you can do in sideboarding is actually make a sideboard guide where you just have like these are the exact cards that I'm going to play against each common matchup already figured out. And that can save a lot of time when you're playing in a big tournament. But, you might also want to make some changes based on more minute adjustments. So, for instance, you might have that anti-upgrade tech in your sideboard, but you only bring it in if you see cards like the Traitorous that Thork is running. But some green Bobas, I believe, are not running Traitorous. So, in those situations, you could play it a little differently. Interesting. Viper Probe swings into Boba, lands a 3 damage hit. Boba swings into the base for 4. He could be ambushed and defeated here by Bosk. And I think that might be what we see. Maybe not. So the other thing is that Thork could deploy his own Boba and swing into Zuhair's Boba to get the kill there. But I think we might see Bosk here. Yeah, it's Bosk ambushing, taking out Boba. So Zuhair's Boba leader doesn't stay on the board too long. But Zuhair then sends in Bosk to ambush his opponent's Bosk. So you know, interesting situation there. Now Thork is the one to deploy his Boba leader. Zuhair's Cartel Spacer inflicts more damage to base, and I suspect that Thork will have Boba kill Bosk. No, he doesn't do it. He actually swings there. I wonder if he's going to ambush something in with ECL to take out Bosk. Yeah, that's correct. So he erroneously untaps, but shouldn't. Okay. So thork actually made a bit of a rules error here. I think maybe because he is less familiar with I think because he's less familiar with Boba Fett. So there's a thing here. When this unit completes an attack, if an enemy unit left play this phase, ready up to 2 resources. So the important thing to know about this is that a leader unit being defeated does not leave play because it goes back to its leader side. And as a result of that, Boba was not able to ready those resources when the only thing that had been defeated was his opponent's Boba. However, he then Zuhair kindly allowed a take back where thork used his attack to defeat Bosk instead. Then a unit did leave play, which allowed him to ready up those resources, which he then used to ambush in a 7th Fleet defender with the energy conversion lab, defeating the cartel spacer. Oh, but we have Fett's fire spray ambush. This is a very strong play. So Fett's Fire Spray, when played, if you control Boba Fett or Jango Fett as a leader or unit, ready this unit. And you can resolve the ambush from the energy conversion lab before you resolve the ready ability from the fire spray. So in this case, we see ZuhairGalaxy play out Fett's fire spray, ambush and defeat the cartel spacer, and then ready it. However, an overwhelming barrage from Boba Fett there defeats the Fett's fire spray before it even has a chance to attack. Zuhair can now ambush Boba with Vader. We know he has that in his hand from earlier, and that's exactly what we see. Darth Vader, commanding the First Legion, arrives with ambush, defeats his opponent's leader Boba, and gets to search the top 10 cards of the deck for any number of villainy units with combined cost 3 or less and play each of them for free. Let's see what unit he selects. Boba Disintegrator. Oh, Cell Block Guard. Okay. Cell Block Guard is actually a quite good call here because it has Sentinel. Units in this arena can't attack your non-Sentinel units or your base, and that means that if thork has a Boba of his own, or a Vader of his own, he cannot do that attack. However, he has the traitoress that we saw earlier taking control of the cell block guard, and the cell block guard now poised to trade with Vader. Now we may see whether Zuhair actually sideboarded in upgrade removal. Upgrade removal would be absolutely what he wants to see here. Do we have a confiscate in order to counter? No, we have an overwhelming barrage defeating the cell block guard. Gets a resource back from Boba for an enemy unit leaving play, and it does give Vader +2/+2 for the rest of the turn. So he is a 7/5 right now, which does mean that if thork has a Vader of his own to ambush in, they will actually trade. Now it might still be worth it to do because that Vader would bring in another unit, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So wait, why would he only take 6? Yeah, yeah, so it is a trade, but it might end up being a favorable trade for thork because he does get to search his top 10 cards and bring in a 3 resources of villainy units. Um, Depend on what he finds there, that could be quite favorable. The Zuhair still has 3 resources of his own. Boba Disintegrator is a very good card to bring in this situation. Let's see what or I'm sorry, Zuhair actually has 4 resources. Let's see what Zuhair can do with those resources. Ooh, looks like nothing. He just takes the initiative, not necessarily where you want to be. Now, Zuhair does have a card advantage here in terms of cards in hand. Plays out a Fett's Fire Spray, not an answer to Boba Disintegrator, but is going to create a major threat in that space arena. Zuhair is only slightly behind on base HP. He has 16 HP remaining to thork's 17 HP remaining. And a Fett's Fire Spray might allow him to win just a race without having to contest that Boba Disintegrator directly. 3 damage to base from thork's Boba Disintegrator, 5 damage to base from Zuhair's Fett's Fire Spray. thork has a Fett's Fire Spray of his own. If he has a shoot first, oh, But before he can attack with it, it is countered by no good to me dead. Exhaust a unit, and that unit can't ready this round, including during the regroup phase. So thorrk's fire spray is locked down. I don't know if he had a shoot first or a surprise strike to deal with his opponent's fire spray, but the exhaust effect there is going to prevent him from using it. And now, Zuhair's in a arguably favorable position. His board is smaller, but with his opponent's Fet's fire spray unable to attack this round and exhausted for this next turn as well. This could be a window of opportunity for Zuhair here to push more damage to base. If he does Fet's Fire Spray, like if he has Fet's Fire Spray into base, he could then potentially take initiative and surprise strike it into the base to win the game. But of course there are counters, so another overwhelming barrage from thorrk would allow the Fet's Fire Spray, even though it's exhausted, to do a bunch of damage and clear his opponent's Fire Spray. We could also see, yeah, the same No Good to Me Dead that Zuhair played on that fire spray. Uh, thorrk has for Zuhair's fire spray, so exhausted for 2 rounds. We really are seeing some of the mirror match aspects um, of this matchup. Let's see what happens next. A Vader here could ambush and defeat Boba. No, it's going to be a Viper Probe. Looking at the hand there, and so develops a small unit and looks at the hand. Okay, so there wasn't a shoot first, but there was a surprise strike. So I believe it was surprise strike, Bosk, and traitorous there. Interesting scenario. Boba Fett disintegrator swinging into the base for some solid damage. And oh, the Steadfast Battalion, not a very strong unit right now. So this is often used. The purpose of this unit is sometimes to fight your opponent's Boba Fett. It's kind of an odd unit. So basically, in the past, several Boba decks played ATST. The ATST is a 6-cost 6/7 overwhelm. The Steadfast Battalion is a 5-cost 5/5 overwhelm, but the Steadfast Battalion has an on attack ability where if you control a leader unit, you can give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. This has seen a fair amount of play because you can use that on attack ability on the Steadfast Battalion itself, make it a 7/7, and get a lot of value, especially with an ambush off the Energy Conversion Lab. It is, however, weaker than the ATST if there is not a leader unit. And now we see Bosk ambushing and defeating the uh, Bosk ambushing and defeating the copy of Viper Probe Droid. Zuhair takes initiative, and now I Zuhair's got to have something big, or else this game is going to end this turn, I think. With only 10 HP left on the base, and with thorrk having a surprise strike available, Zuhair is going to have to really pull out something strong in order to stabilize this game. Now, of course, he could have his Steadfast Battalion attack into Bosk, defeat him, and do 2 overwhelm damage to the base. That's a quite reasonable play, but he might need more than that if he's going to get this win. So he leads off again. He leads off with that attack, or 3 overwhelm to base. Actually, yeah, 3 overwhelm to base. And Boss dealing 4 damage back, so the Steadfast Battalion left on 1 HP. And Boba Disintegrator could take it out while taking no damage thanks to his on-attack ability here. But I actually think it might make more sense for thorrk to just put pressure on the base and try to close the game. If he attacks with his Fet's Fire Spray, he can deal 5 damage and then potentially surprise strike Boba Disintegrator into the base to close things out. So yeah, 5 damage to base from the Fet's Fire Spray. Zuhair has to have an answer to that Boba Disintegrator or it is game over. And what he really needs to have here, I think, is Vader. He needs to have either Vader or Overwhelming Barrage, and I'm not sure anything else is going to stabilize it. And even then, he's going to be in a lot of trouble because his opponent's Fet's Fire Spray, if thorrk just takes the initiative, his Fet's Fire Spray can attack and win at the start of the turn. I I think it's not looking good for ZuhairGalaxy, even though he is probably the more experienced Boba player. It seems like thorrk has the advantage here. I think those copies of Traitorous have been really strong for thorrk. Tata, this is game two. So in game one, thorrk won, and this is game two. So if thorrk gets this one, it's going to be a 2-0 win for thorrk. thorrk, known as a Vader player, but switched on to Boba Green for this tournament because in the past he had been frustrated by how much aggro was in the meta, even though he thought it shouldn't be. Zuhair plays a Fet's Fire Spray, overrating the Fet's Fire Spray he already has, but that's probably a game loss here because we're just going to see the Surprise Strike. Exactly right. Boba Surprise Strikes the base, and it is a win for thorrk, despite being more experienced, but despite being more experienced with other leaders, he's able to get the win here. And I think the key difference was that I don't know if Zuhair was running Traitorous, but we didn't see it. I don't know if Zuhair was running Traitorous, but we didn't see it, and we didn't see any attachment removal to counter thorrk's Traitorous. So it's possible that Zuhair had the upgrade removal and just didn't see it. But I think Traitorous was kind of the key card simply because I think Traitorous was the key card here simply because it hits for it's such a huge swing. So the thing about Traitorous is this not only removes an opponent's unit, it gives you a unit, which is really impactful. And so I think that each time Traitorous was able to take over a valuable unit that Zuhair had to expend additional resources to get rid of, and he never had the attachment removal super reversal. Okay, so I think he's saying that he has one copy of Traitorous, or he has two copies in sideboard, zero in main deck. It's so interesting. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how things evolve. I actually don't think of Traitorous as being I don't think of Traitorous as being actually all that good, which is interesting. So the card itself is actually excellent, but the thing is it's so easily countered by sideboarding that it's extremely risky to play it after the first game. Yeah, I am Wu says should just run confiscate. I don't know if Zuhair actually had it, but I would put three confiscate in the sideboard of any deck that doesn't have red right now. And if the deck does have red, I would play Disabling Fangfighter in that slot. There is an argument for power failure, but I think you want Disabling Fangfighter instead. The thing is, if you have that and the opponent plays out that Traitorous, you can do a gigantic reversal and gain huge value by removing the upgrade and getting your unit back. However, didn't have it at this point. I am Wu says Fangfighter is just a pretty good main deck card at this point. IMO. Yeah, to be honest, Wu, I agree. I have Fangfighter main deck for some of my builds as well. I think it's a 3 for a 3/2 in space is kind of inefficient, but there are so many upgrades in the meta, not just from cards like Traitorous, but you also have things like the Fallen Lightsaber, the Jedi Lightsaber that some decks are running. You have some builds that have experience tokens. You have some builds that have shield tokens. There's just really, in my opinion, there are just really a large number of cards that you might want upgrade removal for. Um, so at least for some builds, I think that Disabling Fangfighter is a reasonable main deck card, and for others, I think it's still going to be a good sideboard card. So interesting, very interesting situation, if you ask me. Tr- Traitorous is Traitorous is a very good card in its impact, but it's so vulnerable to upgrade removal that I'm not sure that it's good right now against the prepared opponent. However, I'm not sure. I don't know whether Zuhair wasn't running the confiscates or if he just got unlucky in terms of not drawing them. But ultimately, wasn't able to deal with those copies of Traitorous. thorrk got the win. And yeah, we're going to see how things continue. thorrk has made the top four. I believe the semifinals and finals will be streamed by other players, so I'm not going to be the commentator for those games, but stay tuned to see more. I'm going to actually just check in and see who it is that will be streaming those so I can direct you guys to some relevant other resources. I believe that we are going to see. I believe that Rebel Trader is going to be streaming the semifinals and finals, and Endless is going to be streaming one of the other semifinals games. So Endless is, I believe, Yavin Base on YouTube. And so we'll see what happens with those, but other broadcasters will be covering those matches. So that's going to do it for my broadcast here, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later with some more Star Wars Unlimited content. See ya.